my way. I'll be building my kingdom just to watch it fade away.
Toby Mac, Me Without You. And as you can see, we are live outside on the plaza right now where Toby Mac is in fact setting up for the summer concert series. You love waving to that cat every single week he does
I'm never going to stop doing that.
It's a sticky one out here right now. It's humid. Good morning. Welcome back. Time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. First up, the good. Soccer fans could soon get free beer, but under one condition.
Mexico breaks the curse of the fifth game. I see him helping Californians pay for their celebratory Bud Light. Dilly dilly.
Fans in California will get free brews if Mexico beats Brazil on Monday. The team hasn't advanced past a fifth World Cup game in more than 2 decades.
Okay. Next, the bad. An unexpected shopper forces a Walmart customer to call police. Texas officers wrangling an 8-foot alligator in the parking lot near Corpus Christi. Wildlife officials moved that reptile to a safer area. That's not what you see in the parking lot. Yeah.
And you don't expect to see this either, the ugly. A woman falls through a ceiling trying to run from the cops. You look at that. You can see her crashing down onto a shelf inside a convenience store. This was in Canada. She was trying to hide above the ceiling tiles after she and another suspect allegedly used a stolen credit card. Oh my goodness, that is insane.
I mean, that's hysterical.
Oh, wow.
All right.
If you're going to be out here 48th and 6th Avenue sometime this morning, make sure you stop on by. Toby Mac is going to be rocking the plaza all morning long.
I always eat ribs for breakfast. So if you want ribs for breakfast, come get ribs for breakfast. We'll see you later.
Have a good one.
This is a Fox News alert. A grudge may be the motive in that targeted attack at the newspaper, the Capital Gazette, in Annapolis, Maryland.
Police say 5 people were gunned down by that man right there. His name is Gerard Ramos, who once sued the paper for defamation.
All right, in just hours, he will face a judge on charges of first-degree murder. Griff Jenkins is live outside the Capital Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland, with the newest details. Hey, Griff.
Good morning, guys. Tragic scene here, and Gerard Ramos, 38 years old, will appear at 10:30 this morning in court to face 5 counts of first-degree murder. We're learning a lot more about the history of threats made against the Capital Gazette on social media, on Twitter, and a defamation lawsuit from 2013, which Ramos filed against the paper because of an article they wrote about his conviction in a harassment case. The woman who was the target of his harassment telling officials at one point, quote, "He will be your next mass shooter." A lot more questions to be answered with Ramos's background, but we're also learning the identities of the 5 victims here at the paper. They are Wendy Winters, Rebecca Smith, Robert Hyacin, Gerald Fishman, and John McNamara. You know, this paper was really the paper of the community, and that's why Governor Mayor Buckley was hit so hard. And here's what he had to say about the victims.
They're our friends. I mean, we're grieving for these guys. These are guys that come to city council meetings, have to listen to boring politicians and sit there and make 20 to 30,000 a year, 40,000 a year. They don't make a lot of money. It's just immoral that their lives should be in danger.
The mayor also praising first responders, guys, coming within 60 seconds in some cases to stop the shooting that happened around 2:30 when Ramos came into the newsroom blasting with a shotgun, using some smoke screen bombs. Governor Hogan calls this paper his hometown paper, and he issued a statement saying he was devastated. Quote, "There is no place in our society for this kind of hatred and violence, and the individual responsible for this horrendous crime must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Now, we're waiting, guys, for another update from officials this morning. We know that Ramos's residence in Laurel, Maryland nearby was searched overnight, but here's the story of the morning, and that is the Capital Gazette's act of defiance, saying that they will publish. This is it. You see the 5 victims on the cover of the paper. We'll bring to you the latest when we get it, but this story certainly has a lot of questions still to be answered because of the history that Ramos had against the paper. By the way, that writer of the original article for which the defamation suit came is no longer employed here, so that raises some question as to why the 5 individuals were targeted. guys.
All right, Griff, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, it looks like there were some red flags that were missed. One of the survivors told the New York Times, he said, quote, when he was reloading, as it turns out, he didn't have enough bullets for us.
Wow. Wow. One guy was tweeting about it, saying he was underneath the desk, and he said, you can't imagine the terror. We report on these kinds of things all the time. And he said, but when you're in the scene and you hear the guy reloading his gun, it is just terrifying. The guy was found underneath one of the desks. He didn't have an ID on him. The police, it only took him 60 seconds, as you heard Griff say, which is wonderful. The president was tweeting about it, said, my thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Then it came out who this guy was, and then police connected it
the vendetta.
to exactly the vendetta against the paper.
And quickly, a lot of media organizations bolstered up their local police force to make sure this wasn't something that's going to be a chain reaction or chain killings. Meanwhile, about the 5 that lost their lives and others are clinging to them. Let's look at Gerard Fishman. He's been described as personality was so quiet and withdrawn that it hit his brilliant mind. Wry wit, wicked pen that his colleagues would treasure.
That's a tweet from the paper. He was a smart guy. He tried out for Jeopardy 2 times.
Wow. Meanwhile, they tweeted this out about Rob Hyasson. Rob Hyason's wryly observant writing style and his generous mentoring of young journalists assured him of roles in several newsrooms, including the Capital Gazette. He was, by the way, the brother of Carl, the world-famous columnist down at the Miami Herald.
That's right. He's also a father.
Meanwhile,
they tweeted this out about John McNamara. They said John McNamara was remembered by his colleagues for his flexibility, concise writing, and extensive knowledge of regional sports. Apparently, he was the jack of all trades in the newsroom, 56 years old. He was a sports reporter and he was a copy editor. That's what they mean about the flexibility.
A lot of these papers, a lot of people that worked at this paper worked at the Baltimore Sun. So if you want to pick up an editorial that talks a lot about it, a lot of those people look back and talked about this paper. Meanwhile, Rebecca Smith said this. Was a recent hire at Capital Gazette, but had already proved herself a valuable asset.
She was only 34 years old, and her Facebook page says, Mom to the best kid ever.
Oh, my goodness. And finally, Wendy Winters. They tweeted this. After a career in fashion and PR in New York City, Wendy Winters built a reputation as a prolific freelance reporter and well-known community resource at the Capital Gazette.
And her daughter said she was a wonderful woman and a fantastic reporter. She covered the local news for the paper.
This was the deadliest killing involving journalists in the United States in decades. We're going to have the mayor of Annapolis with us in today's show.
We'll be covering it all morning.
All right, meanwhile, at 5 minutes after the hour, on a different note, there were emotional fireworks on Capitol Hill, and frustration boiled over. You could really see the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee are just fed up and frustrated about the year-long quest to get the documents necessary to fully understand what went on during the 2016 election as it relates to Hillary Clinton's emails and the Russia investigation. They get some, they get a little, never enough. Redactions that make no sense. When they're revealed, it turns out it was just preventing, in many cases, embarrassment. So when Rod Rosenstein, appointed by President Trump, and Chris Wray, now director of the FBI, appointed by President Trump, went in front of the House Judiciary Committee, you clearly knew that they wanted everybody to know what they've been dealing with behind closed doors. First and foremost, I thought, who's always great in this because he's so concise and to the point, Trey Gowdy. Listen to his message to AG Rod Rosenstein, and I hope you're listening to Bob Mueller.
We've seen the bias. We've seen the bias. We need to see the evidence. If you have evidence of wrongdoing by any member of the Trump campaign, present it to the damn grand jury. Whatever you got, finish it the hell up, because this country is being torn apart.
I've heard the suggestions that we should just close the investigation. I think the best thing we can do is finish it appropriately and reach a conclusion.
Rod Rosenstein stood his ground throughout. And in fact, we're going to show you another exchange with Jim Jordan where Mr. Rosenstein was trying to answer, but Jim Jordan had all these questions. Keep in mind, there's so much frustration on the Republican side in this particular, in the Republican caucus, because they feel the DOJ, for whatever reason, and the FBI has been hiding stuff. They've been slow walking things or, you know, as Brian mentioned, redacting things that don't need to be redacted. The tensest exchange was between Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and Rod Rosenstein. Essentially, Mr. Jordan saying, where's the stuff we keep asking for?
Mr. Rosenstein, why are you keeping information from Congress?
Congressman, I am not keeping any information from Congress that it's appropriate.
In a few minutes, Mr. Rosenstein, the House of Representatives is going to go on record saying you haven't complied with requests, you haven't complied with subpoenas, and you got 7 days to get your act together. We have caught you hiding
Mr.
information.
Chairman, I'm not the person doing the redacting. I'm responsible for responding to your concerns. So your statement that I'm personally keeping information from you, trying to conceal information.
You're the boss, Mr. Rosenstein.
That's correct. And my job is to make sure that we respond to your concerns. We have, sir. Now, I've appointed Mr. Lausch, who is managing that production. And my understanding is it's actually going very well, sir.
I think the House of Representatives is going to say otherwise.
But your use of this to attack me personally
Why did you
is
it's not
deeply wrong.
Well, and he says it's not personal, it is personal.
It went on for about 7 minutes.
Well, he is the boss. He could go into the guy's office and say, hand me all the paperwork, work weekends, or hire more people to get this information into his hands so he can turn it over.
Or the President of the United States. If he wanted to, the President could just sign something and it would all be released. So I get the frustration on both sides, but the self-awareness of Mr. Rosenstein is, you've got to understand, you've got these Republicans who feel like, for whatever reason, somebody at the DOJ is not giving them the stuff they want. I heard from a congressional investigator last night. Apparently, they've got a list of like a dozen things that they need from the DOJ, and they did release 2 more yesterday. It's not everything they want, but it's a step in the right direction.
They were referring to this resolution, and this is what passed almost during the hearing simultaneous by a vote of 226 to 183, non-binding. The House passed a resolution demanding the Justice Department and FBI turn over the documents related to the investigation of Hillary Clinton and Trump, because they don't have it all. They want to know what they have. They also want to know what Robert Mueller's been doing and what he's been up to, because they're a co-equal branch of government. I'm not sure. I know the president showed remarkable discipline when it comes to Rod Rosenstein and the investigation in many ways. And he's been hesitant to get involved directly and say, hey, DOJ, even though I put most of you in place, hand it to the House. But maybe we're at that point right now. And people, the Democrats were saying, wow, Republicans are trying to impress Donald Trump by being aggressive against Rod Rosenstein. They have to be Laurence Olivier to pull off that type of acting and fake anger. That was legitimate. They're just trying to do their job.
Because that's how their constituents feel. Everyone is sick of the Russia investigation. If they don't have any evidence, get it done. Or in the investigation, if there's not any evidence, let's move on as a country, because our country is divided. And that's what Trey Gowdy was saying. But to the president, I don't think the president should get involved. I don't think he should demand those papers, because when he fired James Comey, there was so much pushback. I think he's now saying, I'm going to step aside.
Right. I think the reason they did the resolution yesterday saying, hey, cough up all the documents we want, is because if the DOJ doesn't do that, the next step would be an impeachment of Mr. Rosenstein. And of course, nobody would like to see that. You would like to think that one of your highest lawmen in the country is following the rules.
And by the way, on the Mueller investigation yesterday, they offered a subpoena for Andrew Miller. He's a 26-year-old. He used to work for Roger Stone. They're pursuing something around Roger Stone. He managed the governor campaign of Kristen Davis, who was said to have supplied prostitutes to Elliot Spitzer. He was just worked for Roger Stone for a short period of time. Last night I watched Roger Stone. I was like, I have no idea what they wanted with this guy that used to be my assistant. So they're pursuing some level we don't know about.
All right. Let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good Friday morning. Following a number of stories right now. So let's get you caught up. President Trump getting right to work, finding a replacement for retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. The president meeting with senators, including key Democrats, who voted to confirm Justice Neil Gorsuch and face re-election this fall in states President Trump won in 2016. There's a list of about 25 potential nominees, but federal appeals court judges Brett Kavanaugh and Thomas Hardiman are rumored to be among the frontrunners. A Florida face-off right here on Fox News. Congressman Ron DeSantis and Adam Putnam tangling in a GOP gubernatorial debate. Both candidates sparring over their support for President Trump.
I'm proud of his agenda to make America great again. But I'm running a Florida First campaign, and I look forward to campaigning with him as governor of Florida.
That would be the first time you ever campaigned with him, because when Donald Trump was trying to win Florida in 2016, Adam Putnam did not attend a single rally with him. You couldn't find Adam Putnam if you had a search warrant.
Both are hoping to succeed Republican Governor Rick Scott. President Trump has endorsed DeSantis. The congressman will join us live in the next hour. The First Lady getting another first-hand look at immigration facilities on the border. Melania Trump meeting with local border and immigration officials in Arizona and touring centers holding children.
I'm here to support you and give my help, whatever I can, for behalf of children and the families. Thank you for having me.
The First Lady visited a center in Texas last week. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
And nobody's talking about what she was wearing.
You're right.
She wore just solid black.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we are talking about it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. All right, coming up, President Trump praising the next generation of leaders in Washington.
Each of you represent the future of this nation. You aren't afraid to speak the truth, even if it means being politically incorrect on occasion.
Charlie Kirk was there for the president's comments. He's next.
You are the people on the front lines of our movement to forge a future of true American greatness. Each of you represent the future of this nation. You aren't afraid to speak the truth and to stand up for what you know is right, even if it means being politically incorrect on occasion.
There you've got President Trump speaking to young Americans during this week's Face-to-Face with Our Future event down in D.C. As the race to the midterms heats up, will these types of events help sway millennial voters from the growing socialist movement on the left? How do they bring them over to the right? That's Charlie Kirk's job. He is the founder and president of Turning Point USA, who helped organize the event, and he joins us live. Charlie, good morning to you from Orlando. What was the idea behind having the event with the young folk at the White House?
Well, it was really special. It was a special type of student that was attending. These were student body presidents, so they represent the entire student body of major universities from all across the country, and they have to have hard-fought campaigns, and they're fighting for free speech and pro-American values on college campuses where it's kind of contentious right now, and these ideas are currently under debate. And it's just amazing to think that on the very same day that Anthony Kennedy steps down, the president of Portugal comes and visits the White House, and there's a rally in North Dakota, the president, the greatest president of our lifetime, takes time out of his busy schedule to address this kind of student audience. This is a side of outreach that is so unusual to see from the president of the United States. So that's really remarkable. Secondly, there is a rising socialist movement in America. Socialism is very easy to sell to a generation of young people that want to believe in utopia. Right. It's built on the best intentions of the public. But as I like to say, socialism has become much more about hating the rich than helping the poor.
Absolutely. And I know the president's message was more about freedom than free stuff. But Charlie, when you look at it, and on college campuses, it's really hard to be somebody to the political right, we have heard repeatedly over the last year or so. But the young woman here in New York City who won that district contest a couple of days ago from Joe Crowley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was on the Late Show last night and talked about how nobody in America should be too poor to live. And if you don't have anything, that is a very potent message.
Correct. Look, it's very easy to be generous with other people's money, but be careful trying to use rightful means of theft to try to redistribute what you feel is best for society. Instead, and try to say we should have a bunch of free stuff like the failed Marxist experiments over the last 100 years. We have over 100 different experiments of socialism and Marxism ruining cultures and civilizations. Let's talk about how we can make the pie bigger, create more wealth and more opportunity for more people, and be brutally honest about the reality of life, not trying to create a utopia on the horizon that will never happen.
There you go. But at this point, everybody just wants to win regardless of the cost. All right, Charlie, we thank you very much for joining us today from Orlando. Have a great weekend.
You bet.
All right. Straight ahead on this Friday, the media melting down over Justice Anthony Kennedy's retirement.
Elections have consequences, and today those consequences are becoming clearer.
Roe v. Wade is doomed.
Diamond and Silk on that coming up next. Morning.
Some quick space headlines. Moments ago, a SpaceX rocket blasting off from Cape Canaveral. In addition to food and water, the cargo mission is bringing a robot crew member to the International Space Station. Simon is the robot's name, has a cartoon face, and answers to astronauts when they call its name.
Wow.
And we're now learning we need President Trump's newly announced Space Force more than ever. The Defense Intelligence Agency director says the U.S. is losing its lead in space. He warns China and Russia are building new weapons that will be ready in the near future.
And we got the Buzz Lightyear thing opening up in Disney.
That's right.
That'll help.
Meanwhile, the mainstream media are in meltdown mode again, this time over Justice Anthony Kennedy's retirement in July.
Elections have consequences, and today those consequences are becoming clearer.
Roe v. Wade is doomed. It is gone because Donald Trump won the election.
Don't allow a vote on this. Don't have a hearing. Don't have a meeting. Don't let anything go forward. Don't play ball with this decision.
All right, then you'll be empty chairs because it's not your decision, Chris Matthews, nor is it Democrats. The president now has an opportunity to change the makeup of the highest court to a degree for a generation or more, a promise he made on the campaign trail.
So how is this resonating amongst the Trump supporters? Joining us now with their reaction, social media stars and Trump supporters, Diamond and Silk. Hey, ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think about all this? You know, we watched Nancy Pelosi yesterday saying, okay, calm down when that lady won, the socialist one here in New York. Calm down. It's okay. I want to say that to the media, too. Just take a chill pill, right?
Yeah, calm down. But shame on the left for always going into a frenzy.
Yeah.
Look, and they only doing this because they want to dismantle the Constitution. But what I say to the left is, listen, we don't need to dismantle the Constitution. We don't need to rewrite it. They need to reread it. That's right. We don't need to oppose the Constitution. We need to uphold the Constitution. And I'm so happy that the president get to pick the next judge that's going to be in place that's going to uphold our Constitution and uphold our conservative values.
You have one ex-Democratic congresswoman called on Democrats to get into a street fight. And then you had Michael Moore, who tends to be liberal, according to reports, says it's time to get off the couch and use your bodies. What is he talking about?
I have no idea what he's talking about, but what I do know from the left is what they do is manipulate, intimidate in order to dominate. But those policies aren't working anymore because people are walking away from that liberal ideology, from all of that foolishness that's going on in the streets, and they want something better for their lives. So that kind of stuff is not working anymore.
And the Democrats keep talking about the blue wave. It's nothing but Democrats waving away at them when they walking off that Democrat plantation.
Well, ladies, you know that one of the reasons the Democrats, a lot of Democrats are concerned is the fact that there's the feeling that if the president is able to get more conservative voices on the high court, that they will undo Roe v. Wade. And the Democrats are, you know, they're against that, while a number of Republicans, you know, that's a dream come true.
But really, you don't know that to be true. So why are you fear-mongering? Why are you spreading that? Why are you going into a frenzy? Just wait and see what's going to happen. But in the meantime, I want the Constitution upheld. And I want a judge put in place that's going to stand by our Constitution.
And it's time to bring values and morals back into America.
Well, the president is now hosting a celebration marking the 6-month anniversary of tax cuts. A lot to celebrate there, right? Or do you think they're just crumbs?
Oh, no, it's a lot to celebrate, baby. Listen, people have more money in their pocket. Americans are excited. They're able to pick and choose whatever job they want to work at. This is an exciting time to be alive in America. And this president is surely making it happen. He is surely making America great again. So he has every right to celebrate. He has done an amazing job, and we love it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Morgan Stanley did a survey, and they asked companies about the tax cut and what you're doing with it. The company survey anticipate using only a quarter to shareholders and dividends. The rest is going to go to pay raises as well as expansion, hiring more people. For those who say that they're just making corporations richer, that's not what Morgan Stanley says, and they're the ones who value companies.
Wow. I absolutely love it. And that's how it's supposed to be. Put America first. This is what this president doing. And guess what? Americans are coming up. They're thriving instead of barely surviving, and we love it.
Well, more money doesn't make you happier, but it does make life easier, and that's what he's doing for a lot of these families that are getting bonuses.
All right.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Have a great weekend.
I like that, Ainsley. I like that last line. Wasn't it great?
I've heard money money doesn't make you happy, but it makes your life easier. And then I've heard money is freedom.
Oh, I like that. John Madden said that. He did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let me tell you what's coming up next. The targeted attack on a Maryland newspaper, killing 5 journalists. What's next for the investigation and how security has already changed in newsrooms across the country? That story with our law enforcement panel coming your way. All right, here we go. And you saw this yesterday. A Fox News alert coming your way. The gunman suspected of carrying out this deadly targeted attack at the Capital Gazette newsroom will face a judge this morning. He has not been talking. He's 38. He's Jared Ramos. He's charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Now, police now identifying all 5 victims of the shooting. 4 journalists. One of them, a sales assistant at the newspaper over in Annapolis, Maryland. And we told you a little bit about that 25 minutes ago. But now let's go into the crime. Investigators now working to figure out the motive. We bring in a great panel today of law enforcement experts. Dr. Darren Porcher, former NYPD lieutenant. You know that. Paul Violas is here, former supervisor for New York District Attorney's Criminal Court Unit. And Elliot Feelig is here. He's former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office. Dr. Porcher, to you first. We find out that this would-be assassin was posting threatening messages and was predicted by some to be a mass murderer before this happened. We see a lot of these warning signs among would-be killers.
I give you a contrast and comparison to what happened with Nicholas Cruz in Florida. Law enforcement should have acted much quicker.
And they admitted it.
Right, and oftentimes we have what we refer to as a threat assessment, especially with a news organization. When you have a threat assessment that specifically entails violence that could be perpetuated towards a news agency, the law enforcement agency is going to ramp up a level of vigilance. That doesn't appear to be the case here.
Let's talk about that. They did have some, they did fear a little bit from him. Do you believe that even though the law enforcement acted in 60 seconds, there should have been a greater barrier even at a smaller newspaper like this, Paul?
Well, so much is going to be looked at, Brian, with respect to physical security and access control and the measures that were in place in the building. I mean, when we just look at this building, we know the security that's in place here. And one of the things that we've learned since 9/11 is to implement tiered or layered security. So there are panels that you have to go through before you can actually get in a building. This is going to be closely scrutinized right from the beginning of the day today with respect to the access control to the building, where this individual was identified, how they were able to contact 911, and how far he was able to penetrate the building before he was stopped.
Elliot, they did have a bit of a warning before this happened. As a former prosecutor, where do you go with that?
All right, so the motive has already been determined, or it seems to be based on this lawsuit. He had sued the newspaper back in 2013.
How about filing off your fingerprints?
Right, so that goes to a degree of knowledge, a degree of awareness, a degree connected to maybe to the meticulous planning that went into it. One of the things as a prosecutor you're anticipating is what are the possible defenses? Maybe he's going to assert an insanity defense. So acts like that would show an awareness of what you're doing. Acts that show planning, acts that show careful steps that were taken one by one. That would one day, in the eyes of a prosecutor, rebut a potential insanity defense.
Darren, you got to be in awe of the 60-second response. And by all accounts, they came in, guns blazing, ready to take out this guy. Even though you're trained and you go to the academy, talk about that mindset to go in.
Well, your heart is beating out of your chest when you respond to what we refer to as a gun run. But the truth of the matter is preparation. When we look at the advancements in terms of policing, it's changing. In the past, we waited for special operations such as SWAT, those types of units to go in first. However, now we're training the first responding officer to be that individual. You're it going in there. And we're training and we're equipping these officers accordingly. And then we'll switch them out as the specialized units come in. But it goes back to where do you feel and where does your training kick in? This is something that we're training recruits in the academy now to be prepared for moving forward.
And Paul, sadly, we've had a couple incidents. For example, videos emerged in Las Vegas when that shooter was wiping out all those concert goers. It turns out videos emerged thanks to a judge demand that showed on the 31st floor there was an officer standing outside that did not go in. He was not being truthful about that. He said he was on the 32nd floor with others. So there is it's not automatic in all situations that these officers do the right thing and go in right away.
No, there's no question about that, Brian, and we know that. And that's not a slight against law enforcement, but what it is a message to all viewers to understand that police when we look at them, these are human beings.
Absolutely.
And regardless of the amount of training that police have, it all comes down to whether or not and how you're going to react when you're in the moment. And you don't know that until it absolutely happens at that point.
And you got to quickly disseminate who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. Right. And it's not easy because no one's wearing name tags, nor are you looking. And then it turns out, too, you compare that to Parkland, where we have a situation where the investigation is undergoing. And you wonder, not only did the sheriff not go in, he told others to stay out.
Right.
For a prosecutor, that's trouble, and that's a lot of those victims' families want answers.
Absolutely. And that, look, the prosecutors are independent from police officers. They're supposed to look at that type of information, that type of evidence with an objective eye.
Darren, finally, where do we go from here on the investigation? We got the guy. He's not talking. He's going to be tried. We know it's him. But if you're another newsroom, if you're a big paper or a small TV station, what do we learn from this?
Well, I look at these shootings as a three-legged stool. The first thing is fortifications. You need to fortify your premise. The second leg in this stool is these active shooter drills. We need to practice constantly. And the third leg is we need a capable and resourceful police department to interdict these individuals before it gets to the incident.
All right, guys, thanks so much. Appreciate it. That dominated our afternoon. We're still trying to figure out how it all happened. But another psycho with a gun. Meanwhile, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, Jillian's poised to tell me what else was happening while we were talking.
That's
Jillian.
right, and that was great information. Good segment, Brian. Thanks. They weren't joking. Thousands of women marching through Washington, D.C. for the day of unrest, protesting President Trump's immigration policy. Nearly 600 people arrested at the Senate office building. Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal says she was among the women arrested. And guess who else was inside the Senate building? Outspoken actress Susan Sarandon spotted with the ringleader of the march, Linda Sarsour. He has 2 Purple Hearts and raked in nearly $200,000 in VA benefits. The only problem? The South Carolina man never served his country. Keith Hudson could spend a decade behind bars after pleading guilty to defrauding the VA. An investigation reveals he used forged documents to falsely claim he was a Navy veteran who served in the Vietnam War. He was busted for the same thing in Connecticut in 2005. The Supreme Court refuses to hear an appeal to reinstate prayers at county meetings in North Carolina. Now the ACLU is counting that decision as a victory. North Carolina's Rowan County was trying to fight a ruling from a lower court that banned praying at their Board of Commissioners meetings. The ACLU filed the suit on behalf of 3 residents who thought it was unconstitutional, since the prayers only represented one faith. The Army looking for a new slogan to replace Army Strong.
Hey, First Sergeant. Good morning.
The largest branch in the U.S. military wants a message that's just as successful as the Be All You Can Be ad in the 1980s and 90s. The Army calling it one of the most successful advertising campaigns ever. The new one meant to get more people between 18 to 24 to sign up. So look at your headlines, guys. Send it to you.
That was very catchy. Yeah. I remember.
I do too.
All right. Meanwhile, he's an army of one, and he's got the weather. He's Adam.
Also an atom of one, exactly. Boy, it's going to be the hottest weekend of the entire summer, at least so far. These temperatures we're talking about early this morning, 72 degrees, humid here in New York City, but the middle of the country already the middle 80s. These are your current temperatures. Daytime highs are going to get way above that. We've got heat watches and warnings. Everything in the red, that's a warning. That means heat indices. The feels like temperature will be up to 105 degrees or warmer. That's dangerous to spend a lot of time outside. So you're including large areas there of the Midwest stretching back into the plains, all spots where it is going to get incredibly hot today. Your feels like temperature 110 this afternoon in St. Louis, 105 in a lot of communities. It is going to be hot, hot, hot. And guys, I know you're curious about your weekend plans. Well, I wanted to leave you with this one. Look at this. This is New York City, 98 degrees for us on Sunday. The feels like temperature will be in triple digits here as well. It's going to be hot across large portions of the country.
It's like we went on vacation in Phoenix.
Exactly.
All right, great.
Stay inside on Sunday, New Yorkers.
It's summer. It better be hot. Otherwise, we're in big trouble. All
Thanks,
right,
Adam. All right, our next guest is running for Congress and was set to hold a fundraiser at a country club, but it got canceled because the venue found out she supports President Trump. She's going to join us live to respond.
Plus, upcoming, we've got Congressman Ron DeSantis. He was in the big debate last night. Mark Levin, the radio guy, and the acting ICE director, Tom Homan. We've got a busy 2 hours and 18 minutes left. You're watching Fox and Friends, and it's Friday.
Great song.
All right, it's quarter before the top of the hour. Some quick Friday morning headlines for you. First up, Amazon is making its way into your medicine cabinet, perhaps. The retail giant just bought the online pharmacy PillPack. The new deal forcing Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid to lose $11 billion in stock market value. PillPack can ship prescriptions in 49 of the 50 states. And Guinness is opening its first American brewery in more than 60 years. The $80 million facility right outside of Baltimore, Maryland, will have a tap room and a restaurant. It's going to open on August the 3rd. Guinness calls the U.S. the most exciting beer market in the world today. All right, Ainsley?
Okay, thank you. As the rhetoric against Republicans continues, another instance of discrimination surfaces. Lena Epstein is a businesswoman and a Trump supporter. She's running for the 11th Congressional District in Michigan. She was scheduled to hold her fundraiser this week at her country club, the Franklin Hills Country Club, but the venue suddenly canceled her event on Friday, citing her political beliefs and saying they will no longer hold political events. Epstein says that previously the club hosted a fundraiser for the Democrat that is vying for the same seat. They just wouldn't let her, the Republican, do it. Joining us now to tell us the story is congressional candidate Lena Epstein. Lena, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So tell us what happened.
We've had a fundraiser planned at Franklin Hills for 2 months at least. I'm a fourth-generation member of Franklin Hills. The country club has a very rich history of hosting Democrats and Republicans for fundraisers. They hosted a fundraiser just about a month ago for a Democrat opponent in the same race. I was called on Friday of last week and told that the board of directors was canceling the Lena for Congress fundraiser because of my political beliefs. I was President Trump's statewide co-chair in 2016, and I went to the mat for him then, and I continue to be an avid Trump supporter and somebody who will work with him in Congress beginning in January of 2019. They called off our event because of my support for the president.
Well, I can understand if they don't want to have political things there, especially the direction of politics now, but they should maybe grandfather in the rule. They let your opponent, a Democrat, is he a member of your country club?
He is not.
He's not, but they let him speak because he's a Democrat. They wouldn't let the Republican, and you're a member there. They should at least be loyal to you, grandfather in the new rule, and don't allow it going forward, but not cancel your event. And then I was appalled when I read the former president of the country club. His son posted this on Facebook. Right now, President Trump and his government are building concentration camps at our borders and separating children from their parents. Lena isn't merely silent in the face of this horror. She is running on how strongly she agrees with Trump. She's a neo-fascist who has thrived politically by building a coalition of vicious anti-Semites, racists, and xenophobes. What was your response when you read that?
Well, it's very painful to experience any type of cyberbullying. I think it speaks to the vitriol and the hate that's being spewed from the liberal left. I think that this is not just about discrimination, political discrimination for one fundraiser at one country club. I think what we're seeing right now across the country is a lack of hate that's being spewed from the liberal left. I think that this is not just about discrimination, political discrimination for one fundraiser at one country club. I think what we're seeing right now across the country is a lack of tolerance for Trump supporters. And I would encourage all liberal Democrats to elevate the conversation. I say this every day, that I don't expect others to agree with me and my political views, but I do expect that I expect us to treat each other with dignity and respect. I am a candidate for the United States Congress in Michigan's 11th district, and I'm determined to bring grace and dignity back to the political discourse in this country.
Are they going to let you stay at the country club now that you're speaking out against it?
I love being a member at Franklin Hills. My daughter swims in the pool there. My husband golfs there. We have a very rich history. It's a second home to me. Yeah. I intend to be there this weekend. And most of all, I think that what we're seeing with Sarah Sanders and Pam Bondi and now Lena Epstein, who is President Trump's statewide co-chair and is definitely the Trump candidate in this Michigan's 11th congressional district race. I'm very concerned about the direction of the country, and I'm calling on the liberal left to elevate the conversation. I want us to treat each other with dignity and respect, even where we disagree politically.
Yeah.
The hate coming out of Maxine Waters, that needs to stop. And I am asking all people to be kind to Trump supporters, even where you disagree politically. I love the club. I'm looking forward to being a member there for many years.
Be kind and be fair. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best, Lena. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank
Have
you
a good
for
weekend.
having me.
Good luck when you go to the club. We did reach out to the country club, Franklin Hills, for a statement, and we didn't receive a response. So far, the club has not responded to any media. All right, Congressman Ron DeSantis, he was grilling Rod Rosenstein over the Russia probe. Watch this.
Saying that Comey should be fired. Seems like you should be recused from this more so than Jeff Sessions.
The congressman is going to join us live next hour after that debate last night. And the number is stunning. More than 70% of Americans believe social media censors their political views. Kurt, the cyber guy, is here with the tools to fight back. Coming up next.